So here in Premiere Pro, we're going to have a look at how we add a box underneath some text. So basically, we're going to come to our graphic rectangle tool here, and we're just going to stretch out a rectangle up here. If we want to modify this, we can double click on that graphic you can see we popped up on the timeline, and we'll get options across here on the right for the fill color for our text box, and also for things like the opacity, which we can modify here. Then to add some text on top of this, we can grab our type tool again, and we'll just position this here. We can type here right in the program window. And then we can come back to our selection tool and we can move this around. So you can see this has wrapped it all into one easy to use graphic on the timeline. So if I move ahead here, I can trim this down and then basically select either the type or the box in the background if I want to make modifications. You can also see across here on the essential graphics, it's layered up in Premiere Pro, and I can adjust how those are layered. The other way that you might do this, I'm just going to select this clip and drag it across, is to keep those two things separate. So if I come to my rectangle tool here, I'm going to draw out a rectangle across here on the right. This time I'm going to deselect that rectangle and then come to my type tool, and then I'm going to draw that on, and it will draw on its own layer. So now I'm going to type in here. And the difference here really is that we now have two layers that can work separately. So I'll come back to my selection tool, we'll move this down, and you can see the advantage of that is it means we can offset those two things. So if we want the box, for instance, to fade in separately to our type, then we can do that. So if we right click here, we can apply the default transitions, getting that edit point. And you can see now these fade in separately. We can space those out. Whereas here, if we add the default transition, both those things are going to fade in at the same time. So two different options there for adding type with a layer behind it. One where it's one entire graphic, and then one where it's two separate graphic layers on the timeline. And the real difference in the way that you would make those is just that you would basically deselect one layer, i.e. your graphic layer, after you've made it, so that you can then, so we'll deselect it here, add the type layer, and that will keep those two layers separate. And you can see it's creating it at the playhead. Wherever I have the playhead selected, it's making those two different layers. And we can delete these from the timeline. If we've created a graphic layer that is above our type, then we can just move those around to get those in the right order so that our type is appearing over the top of our graphic layer. And that's how to add layered graphics and type in Premiere Pro.